There are moments in life when you realize that even silence has lost its power, that disappearing, no matter how radical it seems, changes nothing if your mind is still full of noise. It's the harshest awakening, realizing that the real problem wasn't your presence in someone else's life, but the absence you refused to accept within yourself. You stopped texting, deleted their number, avoided their social media, but in your mind they were still there. Every night, every morning, every time you checked your phone hoping for a sign. That kind of disappearance isn't power. It's just a pause between two humiliations, and that's exactly what he went through. A broken man, convinced that vanishing would make him missed. He believed his absence would speak louder than words. That silence would provoke her, but nothing happened. No message, no return, not even a hint of doubt. Just silence met with silence. And that silence, instead of earning him respect, came back with a painful echo, the sound of his own helplessness. His heart still attached, his mind still full, his body waiting. He couldn't sleep, ate without appetite, lived in slow motion. He reread the last message, overanalyzed every word, searching for the invisible mistake that might have ruined everything. Meanwhile, life moved on. Her life moved on, effortlessly, untouched, as if he had been just a brief inconvenience. That's the invisible trauma no one sees. When someone leaves, it's not the act that breaks you. It's how fast they forget, how easily they become cold, distant, immune to your pain. Then come the typical tips. Stop texting her, disappear, ignore her. Empty words to anyone who hasn't learned self-mastery. You can block everything on the outside, but if you're still begging for attention in your mind, you haven't disappeared. You've just gone into hiding. And those who hide still hope. Those who hope are still attached, and those who are attached are weak. That's when Stoicism reveals its truth. Disappearing means nothing if you're not yet the master of your inner world. You can lie to yourself thinking absence has power, that silence demands respect, that distance hurts the one who left. But if your energy is still tied to their validation, you hold no power. You're just pretending you do. The problem is that many men think walking away is enough to be missed, but it's not absence that creates impact. It's indifference. That silent shift that doesn't seek revenge, doesn't chase closure, doesn't leave any doors open. Strategic absence without inner transformation is just a dull weapon, like a sword with no edge. It may look sharp, but it doesn't cut. So then, what truly breaks someone who took you for granted? Becoming unpredictable. Dropping the performance and living in truth. The truth that says, you're no longer the center of my focus. I'm not pretending to ignore you. I've simply learned not to see you anymore. That can't be faked. You either are, or you're still trapped. He realized it at the most painful moment. Even after all his efforts to disappear, she didn't come back. No signals, no panic. Because deep down she still felt watched. She sensed that behind the silence he was still waiting. That unspoken expectation took all the weight out of his absence. Because power isn't about going quiet, it's about stopping the emotional reaction, about no longer waiting. And that's where this message becomes a warning to anyone in the same situation. If you believe disappearing alone earns respect, you're chasing a fantasy. Respect isn't triggered by absence, it's earned through transformation. When you become someone who no longer looks back, who doesn't need attention, who no longer wants them to return, then yes, they'll start wondering where you are. But by then, it won't matter anymore. The first step toward inner strength isn't silence, it's decision. The decision to be truly unavailable, even in your thoughts. To stop feeding invisible energy to someone who drained you. To break the cycle where you wait while they move on. That's true Stoic discipline. Not provoking reactions, but becoming someone who needs none. Who no longer craves approval. Who no longer measures his worth through someone else's attention. And that's when everything shifts. When absence is no longer a tactic, but a reality. When silence is no longer anger, but self-presence. When you stop wishing they'd return and start being thankful they left. That's the start of your true rebirth. When someone hurts you, the first instinct is to disappear. It's the advice everyone gives. Cut contact. Stop writing. Make them regret with your silence. And at first glance, it seems perfect. You vanish, create distance, and wait for them to notice. You imagine the scene, her checking her phone, noticing the silence, wondering where you went. You believe the emptiness will start to weigh on her, that she'll feel what you felt. But the truth is far less satisfying. Most of the time, nothing happens. Not because silence has no power, but because most people use it wrong. The paradox of silence is this: it only works when it's real, when it's not an act, not a pause expecting a reaction, but the result of an authentic inner shift. If you disappear but think about her every day, if you delete her number but still hope for a text, if you don't write but dream of her every night, you haven't disappeared. You're just pretending. And energy doesn't lie. Women, especially those used to emotional control, sense everything. They feel when your silence is full of hope, when your absence is just a mask, when underneath it all you're still watching, still waiting, still begging for invisible closure. And that's when silence loses its value. It's not seen as strength. It's seen as a weak attempt at emotional manipulation. It doesn't bring regret, it brings contempt. That's why so many men fail at this point. They think simply vanishing will flip the game. That if they stop texting, she'll start missing them. But they forget the crucial detail. She only misses you when you're no longer emotionally available. Not when you disappear, but when you've disconnected on the inside. And she feels that instantly. It happens often. You pull away, resist, hold back. And one day there's a small sign, an unexpected "hey," a like on an old photo, a random message, and you collapse. You reply too fast, too happy, too eager. And in that moment, everything falls apart. Because you confirm what she suspected. You were just waiting. You never truly left. You were just holding your breath, waiting for her return. And her? She disappears again, this time with even more certainty. This is the invisible psychological trap. Disappearing means nothing if your heart is still exposed. If inside you're still searching for approval, for return, for redemption, she still holds power, even in your silence. Because true detachment doesn't need an announcement. It doesn't need proof, it radiates, it takes away their emotional power completely. So what's the real strategy? Stop playing. Stop making moves hoping for reactions. Stop using silence as a weapon if inside you're still armed with hope. Because if your silence is meant to be seen, you're still under her control, still trapped in her emotional world. And that makes you predictable, weak, small. Authentic silence isn't a disguised scream. It's real absence, a space free of expectation. Her gaze turned inward, not outward. And when it becomes that, then yes, it's powerful. Because it speaks a hard truth. I'm not interested anymore. I don't think of you. I don't need you to feel whole. And do you know what happens when silence becomes that? When you genuinely don't respond anymore. When you don't care who views your stories, reads your texts, or tries to reach you. What happens is they panic. Because people don't fear what they can control. They fear what they can't understand. They fear the void they can't fill. And the only silence that leaves a mark is the one that comes from someone with nothing left to prove. From the outside, everything looks the same, but inside everything has shifted. And that's when strategy stops being strategy and becomes identity. It's no longer I stay silent to punish. It's I simply have nothing left to say. It's not I won't reply to drive her crazy. It's I don't respond because I stopped needing validation. It's not I disappear so she misses me. It's I walk away because my self-respect is worth more than her return. That's Stoic detachment, not passive, not bitter, but clear, deep, and final. A detachment that isn't measured in silent days, but in conscious inches. A detachment that doesn't seek attention. It's built through discipline. You don't just disappear, you rebuild. And the moment you do, the world shifts. She shifts, because you're no longer the same. And that's when silence truly strikes. When it's no longer a tactic to attract, but a confirmation that you no longer need to be seen. And the one who lost access to you begins to feel your absence like a weight. But you, by then, are already beyond reach. Disappearing creates a void, but only indifference creates a chasm they can't cross because they no longer know where to begin. And that's the part most people miss. Absence is just the beginning. Silence without radical inner change is still incomplete, like closing a door but leaving the window open. If you truly want to be forgotten, you stop remembering first. He got it the moment he stopped waiting, not outwardly, inwardly. When he stopped checking if she saw his stories, when he stopped wondering if she'd text, when he stopped replaying scenes where she returned, regretted, apologized, that phase and was gone, and with its death, something new was born, a quiet power, one that doesn't shout, provoke, or beg, a silent strength called indifference. It's not about ignoring her to hurt her. It's about cutting her off energetically, about no longer giving her space in your mind, your skin, or your heartbeat, about erasing her, not from your contacts, but from your thoughts. And that, more than any block or deleted photo, is what unsettles her. Because a man who no longer reacts can no longer be touched. That's where respect is born, the real kind, not the one you demand with noise, the one you command with detachment. Because as long as emotion exists, there's still a bond, even negative, even masked as anger or grief, anything that still moves you and still owns you. But when you reach true indifference, when you no longer care where she goes, who she's with, whether she thinks of you, when her voice no longer pierces you, when her face moves nothing inside you, that's freedom, that's danger. Because a man who can't be emotionally manipulated can't be controlled. At first, she doesn't realize it. She thinks it's just a tactic, a phase. She waits for a message, a sign, a reaction. She thinks, he'll cave, I know him. Days pass, weeks, maybe months. She keeps ignoring. But then, something shifts. Because your silence is no longer silence, it's absence. Not just of words, but of access. She can't find you. You're no longer where she left you. And she doesn't know where to look. So she starts watching, lurking, searching for signs of life. But what she sees is worse than silence. It's your growth. She sees you're not suffering, that you're not posting sad quotes, that you're not begging for attention. She sees you're living, you're thriving, you're stronger, calmer, more grounded, and worst of all, without her. In that moment, your absence stops being a wound. It becomes a boundary, a line she can no longer cross, and she, who once thought she could return any time, now sees something has slipped away. The boomerang effect begins, but not because you chased her, not because you tried, but because you took everything back, your energy, your attention, your value. And without those three things, there's nothing left for her to pull from. Total indifference can't be faked. It takes discipline. It's a daily decision. It requires emotional sovereignty, something few truly know how to build. But once you reach it, you become untouchable. Not because no one can speak to you, but because no one can reach what you've learned to protect, your inner peace. And that changes everything. Because when she tries to come back, you're no longer the man she left. She can't find you in the same place. She doesn't recognize you anymore. Your energy has shifted. You're not waiting. You're not cold out of defense. You're focused, you're aligned, you're on mission. And when a man reaches that place, no ex, no past, no abandonment can shake him again. The most uncomfortable truth is that pain, when used wisely, becomes a weapon. And he understood that. He took the emptiness she left and filled it with discipline. He turned absence into strength, silence into a choice, not a wound. He stopped waiting and started building. That's what truly breaks her. Not that you disappeared, but that you no longer need to be found. Not that you don't reply, but that you no longer crave even a message. Not that you're gone, but that you've become indifferent. From that point on, nothing is the same. Because when she tries to come back, expecting there's still room in your life, she finds a closed door. But not one locked in anger, not one slammed shut in revenge, just closed. Because your life took a new direction. And someone who couldn't hold on to you can no longer reach you. Everyone thinks they can be forgotten until you become untouchable. And when that happens, when detachment is no longer performed but real, something short circuits on the other side. An emotional collapse, a loss of control. Because the power of detachment isn't just in the vanishing, it's in the void you leave. And if that void is well built, it cannot be filled again. That's where the boomerang begins. the quiet, brutal effect that brings back those who took you for granted. But this time, too late. She left thinking she was in control, convinced that if she ever wanted to return, she'd find you there. She believed a simple message, a smile, a memory would open everything again. Why? Because she had seen you suffer. She had seen you break. She had left you fragile, pleading, shattered. She planted the belief that she was unique, irreplaceable, essential. And back then, you believed it too. But that man no longer exists. That's why she comes back. But not for love. She comes back because she no longer recognizes you. Because your silence isn't a disguised cry anymore. It's real disappearance. She can't find you where she left you. Not in your heart, not in your thoughts, not in the conversation or the emotion. She searched, silently, and found nothing. And that shakes her more than any fight could. Because people don't fear what they can predict. They fear what they can't understand, and now you're a mystery. You no longer follow a script. You used to be readable, manageable. Now you're elusive, out of reach. Not because you're hiding, but because you've stopped searching, stopped reacting, stopped existing in her world. It starts subtly. A like on an old photo, a view on your story. A casual, hey, how are you? Why, disguised as harmless. But behind it, there's rising anxiety. A silent need to know if you're still reachable. If she still has access, but your energy has shifted, and she feels it. Because the way you respond, if you respond, is different now. You're polite maybe, but cold, closed. You leave no opening, no invitation. And that is the real punishment, emotional absence. Then comes the panic, because for the first time, she's the one who feels rejected. Not because you ignored her with bitterness, but because you've stopped recognizing her. She's no longer someone who completes you. You've stripped her of the power to define you. And the moment you stop chasing is the moment they start chasing you. But you must be careful, because this is where most fall. When the ex returns, when the boomerang hits, the temptation is overwhelming. That inner voice whispers, see? She's back. Maybe she loves me. Maybe she regrets it. And in just a few messages, you fall into the trap, you open up, you get excited. And everything you built, the aura, the distance, the mystery, collapses. Because you confirmed you were just waiting. It's a test, one of the hardest. Because it's not love returning, it's control. It's a check-in, a quiet push to see if you still react. And if you do it, you've lost. Not just her, yourself, your new self, but this time, guys, you don't fall. Because now you know what happens when you reply too fast. You've lived that cycle, the approach, the false hope, and then the disappearance all over again. You know it's not real regret, it's fear. Fear that you might actually be gone, and that fear shouldn't be soothed. It should be sustained. Not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. Because when someone realizes they can no longer get anything from you, no anger, no pain, no attention, that's when they see their own failure. Not because you punished them, but because you've become unavailable, even energetically, even psychologically. And that's real power, not being blocked, but being beyond. Not having to delete anything, because there's nothing left to delete. Not needing to ignore is because there's nothing left to respond to. When you reach that level of transformation, you're not just untouchable. You become undesirable to those who lost the right to desire you. Because now, you are the prize. You're no longer there to prove something. You're not trying to show your worth. You embody it, and your very presence becomes a lesson, one that hurts, not because of what it says, but because of the absence it leaves, because of the calm it transmits, because of the indifference that speaks volumes without saying a word. And that's when she understands. You're no longer part of a past that can be reopened. You've become a future she can no longer reach. And even if she tries to return, she finds closed doors. Not shut out of cruelty, just closed. Because the version of you that once waited is gone. There comes a moment in every broken man's journey when he stops asking, why? When the question, why did it happen, no longer matters. Because all that matters now is what he does next. That's the moment transformation is born. Not the superficial kind, Not motivational quotes or gym selfies pretending to be healed, but real change. The kind that starts inside, in silence, in solitude. Stoic transformation. For many men, pain becomes a prison, a loop of regrets, questions, unsent messages, burning memories, and silent torment. But for the man who dares to face it head-on, pain becomes a catalyst. It becomes fire. It becomes fuel. Once he would have done anything for a message. He would have read meaning into every gesture. He would have clung to crumbs of attention, convincing himself there was still hope. But that fragile boy died, buried beneath sleepless nights, unanswered silence, and unfilled voids. And in his place, a new man emerged, one who didn't look for shortcuts, who didn't run from pain. He faced it, breathed it, processed it. The first step was mental. He started studying, not cheap advice, but the philosophy that shaped emperors and warriors, Stoicism. From Seneca, he learned that happiness doesn't depend on events, but on how we judge them. From Marcus Aurelius, he understood that everything is neutral. We are the ones who color it with emotion. And from Epictetus, he received the hardest truth. You only control what depends on you. The rest must be released. These weren't just quotes to post. They were laws, foundations. He read them every morning, reflected on them every night. And slowly, the chaos began to settle. Not because the pain disappeared, but because he learned how to channel it. Like a warrior engraving scars on his shield, he carved those wounds into his mind. Every disappointment became motivation, every silence a reason to rebuild. Then came the body. Because a strong mind deserves a strong vessel. He trained every day, not out of revenge, but out of respect. Respect for himself. Each rep in the gym was a silent vow. I'll never be weak again. His sweat spoke the words, "You can't break me anymore." And little by little, everything changed. His physique, his posture, his eyes. He wasn't a man chasing attention anymore. He was a man who needed nothing, but commanded respect by simply walking into a room. But the real transformation was in his presence. That deep calm that only comes from walking through fire. He no longer needed to be found. He no longer cared to be understood. He had become quiet, and for that reason, unstoppable. He didn't have to explain his worth. He embodied it, and anyone watching could feel it. Even her. Yes, even her. The same woman who once left thinking he'd be easy to replace, who believed he'd stay still, waiting, who thought a small gesture would bring him back, now watched from a distance and saw someone else. Not pain, but a mystery. A man who had made silence his shield and discipline his sword. And for the first time, she felt small. Because power doesn't lie in trying to be unreachable. It's in becoming so without effort. In being so focused on building, growing, mastering yourself, that everything else fades into the background. And when a woman realizes she's no longer the center of your focus, when she understands she doesn't even have access to your thoughts, something inside her breaks. But you didn't do it for her. It's not revenge. It's not to make her regret. You did it for you. Because you were tired of being fragile, tired of chasing, tired of seeking approval. And finally, you chose yourself. And then something powerful happens. You don't just recover, you rise, you evolve, you grow. The same life that once felt hollow now holds meaning. Your days are no longer filled with absence. They're filled with purpose. Your mind is no longer occupied by her. It's occupied by you, your goals, your path, your discipline. The past becomes no longer a wound, just a stage, a lesson, a fracture that revealed the warrior. Because a true Stoic isn't someone who feels nothing. He feels everything, but is no longer enslaved by it. He no longer gets dragged under. He walks, slowly, steadily, unshakable. There is a kind of mastery that doesn't need words. A silent, invisible power that isn't declared, isn't shown off, and isn't forced. It whispers. But when it arrives, it's undeniable. It's the presence of a man who asks for nothing, but commands everything. Who doesn't shout his transformation, but lets it speak for itself. Who no longer has to justify his distance, because his absence has become so powerful it fills every room. Many, when they're hurt, seek revenge. Some delete photos, others post vague quotes, others rush to show how great they're doing, but not him. He had nothing left to prove, not to her, not to the world, maybe not even to himself. He had realized that real power doesn't come from showing change, but from becoming change. Without an audience, without applause, he didn't block her. He didn't delete the photos. He didn't send hidden messages. He did only one thing. He withdrew, energetically, emotionally, mentally. He pulled back his presence like someone removing a gift that was never valued. And that absence became deafening. But not for him, for her. At first, she thought it was just a game, that he was trying to get her attention, that sooner or later he'd find a way to make himself seen. But time passed, and nothing happened. No reactions, no messages, no signs, just calm, just distance, just silence. And then came the questions. Why doesn't he watch my stories? Why doesn't he like my posts? Why doesn't he message or ask or check in? Has he forgotten me? Has he found someone else? But the truth is he hadn't found someone else. He had found himself. His silence wasn't empty. It was full of meaning. It was proof of a man who had embraced a cruel truth. Strength isn't in holding on. It's in letting go. You don't need to slam the door on someone who hurt you. You just stop opening it. And that silence, that withdrawn presence, became like a ghost, an absence that wandered through her mind every time she looked for a sign. But she found nothing. No response. No warmth. Just cold. Just peace. And peace for the one who lost you is the harshest punishment, because those who expect revenge prepare for it. Those who expect resentment guard themselves. But those met with indifference collapse, because they don't know what to cling to, because they realize there's no space left, not in your life, not in your mind, not in your heart. That's the effect of silent dominance. It's not a game, it's a stance, a choice, an identity. You don't need to say a word. You don't need to explain your distance. Your silence says it all. Your energy, withdrawn without noise, speaks for you. And she starts remembering, not just the good times, but how much she took you for granted, how she treated you, how little she valued your presence. She recalls every unanswered gesture, every dismissed word, every cold glance. And she understands, too late, but she does. She starts bringing you up in conversations, mentions you to friends, checks your profile, searching for something, anything. But there's nothing, because you didn't disappear to provoke her. You disappeared because you had nothing left to say. And the most devastating part is this: your silence isn't calculated. It's complete, it's genuine, it's disinterested. And in that lack of interest, she gets lost. Because as long as someone can provoke a reaction from you, they feel important. But when even your anger fades, only the void remains. A void that screams, you're gone. Not as an act, but as a presence, as a meaning, as a priority. And it's in that absence where she breaks. Because she thought one day you'd come back. Thought she'd find you where she left you. Thought there would still be space. But now that place is occupied by you. The new you. Your calm, your strength, your new life. And you. You're no longer angry. You feel nothing. You want nothing. You're present, but unreachable. Serene, but distant. Alive, but elsewhere. That's the highest level of emotional control, when you don't need to exclude someone, because there's nothing left to exclude. You didn't win because you blocked her. You won because you didn't need to. Not to send a message, but because it's truly over. Because there's no more emotion, no more waiting, no more rage, just silence. A silence that doesn't hurt, because now it's peace. A silence that doesn't scream, because now you're the one in control. Not the silence, that's stoic power, cold mastery, invisible dominance. You don't need to raise your voice, you don't need revenge. You simply live, quietly but with direction. And the one who lost you and will feel it, without you doing a thing. At first she thought all she had to do was wait. That your silence was a trick, a dramatic pause. That sooner or later you'd give her a sign. That you'd cave, like most do. She thought a strategic photo, a cryptic message, or a staged coincidence would be enough. But the more time passed, the more she realized something was off. You weren't there anymore, not in body, in energy. And that's the most lethal kind of disappearance, the one that's never announced, the one that simply is. Pain didn't turn you into an actor. It made you an enigma, a man who can't be read or predicted or controlled, a man who stopped chasing attention, and in doing so began attracting it. You didn't become invisible, you became mysterious. And mystery is the most addictive drug to someone who thought they knew you. You used to be an open book. One word, one glance, one gesture, that's all it took. She knew everything. She knew how to trigger you, how to unbalance you, how to make you chase. But now every move you make is measured. Every non-reply weighs more than 1,000 words. Every minimal presence becomes an echo in her mind, without you doing a thing. Because true mystery isn't what hides, it's what's visible, yet untouchable. You're no longer predictable. You don't post sad quotes. You don't show anger. You don't seek validation. You're not chasing anything. But you appear precisely, a photo, a moment, a movement, never enough to tell a story. Never enough to be understood. Just fragments that say, I'm living and you are no longer part of this life. She watches, every day, checks, tracks, asks. Who is he with? What's he doing? Why isn't he saying anything? And a thought begins to take root in her mind, one she can't shake. Maybe he never loved me like I thought. Maybe he was stronger than I realized. Maybe he's never coming back. That's where the doubt consumes her. That's when real regret is born. Not because you punished her, but because she no longer has access to you. You're not just distant now, you're untouchable. And that destroys her. Because untouchable doesn't mean absent. It means inaccessible. It means you're still out there, but out of her reach. You exist, but not for her. You're here, but on a level she can no longer enter. And you don't need to explain anything. You don't need to ask, do you regret it? You don't ask, why did you come back? You don't care, because you've stopped living based on what others think. You've stopped making room for the past. You've stopped looking back. Now you're ahead, on your path, focused, clear, calm. You've built a life that no longer needs validation, where respect isn't asked for, it's embodied, and your very presence says it all. I need nothing from you. And she feels it, not because you say it, but because you no longer try to be seen. No more reactions, no more emotion. You are neutral, cold, solid. And for the first time, she feels ignored. She's the one seeking answers. She's the one wondering, why doesn't he care anymore? But the truth is, you didn't become indifferent to make her suffer. You became indifferent because you had already suffered enough. And in the end, you realized your peace is more valuable than any unfinished story, any unanswered message, any person who failed to choose you. That's the peak of silent power. No need to block. No need to argue, no need to explain. You've built a life where those who failed to keep you can no longer reach you. Because now, you're the man who leaves the past behind, not by destroying it, but by outgrowing it. You've risen above it. You've transcended it. And while she tries to decode every one of your gesture, you keep walking, without turning back, without letting anything slow you down, because you're no longer tied, no longer vulnerable, no longer dependent. You've become the man who commands respect through coldness, through distance, through rare but steady presence. And do you know what's most powerful about all of this? You're not doing it for her. You're not doing it so she notices. You're not doing it to hurt her. You're doing it for you, because you finally understood anyone who took you for granted doesn't even deserve space in your mind. You don't reject her. You don't resent her. You don't accuse her. You surpass her. And from that moment on, everything changes. You're no longer the past she can return to. You've become a reality she can't touch. Not because you disappeared, but because now you live at a level she can no longer access. This is the highest point of Stoic detachment. This is the final message. And if you've come this far, if you feel this is the man you're becoming, then comment below with one word: intangible. Because that's how true respect is earned, not with shouting, not with revenge, but with the unshakable calm of someone who has learned to be enough for himself.